Okay, so we are at Pioneer Memorial Cemetery in San Bernardino. And a lot of the older gravestones and those who are buried here were the first settlers of San Bernardino. I'm going to, as we walk around and look at the headstones, I'm going to tell you a story about Margaret Adam Henderson. She is buried here. On my next one, I will do at the Mount View Cemetery. She has a plaque there with her children, but she is buried here. So Margaret Adam married David Henderson. They lived in Scotland, and in 1849, they decided, because of the potato famine that was happening, at that time they were they were miners, they were mining peat, and all of a sudden there was coal, and coal took its place, and a lot of people lost their jobs. They were starving, and a lot of people from Scotland immigrated to both Australia and to America. The Hendersons decided that they would travel with the Mormons from Scotland and make their way to Salt Lake City, Utah. In 1849, some of Margaret's siblings, along with some of her older children, decided they were going to send them out first. So they make their way to first New Orleans and then to St. Louis, Missouri. A year later, in 1950, Margaret and her husband, her younger children, her father, a lot of other relatives went as well, and they take the ship from Liverpool, England, to New Orleans. Unfortunately, at the time that they left, cholera was running rampant, and they had no idea what was causing it, how to stop it, or how to cure it. So aboard ship, it took 6 weeks for their ship to go from Liverpool to New Orleans. In that 6 weeks, one of Margaret's sisters and all of that sister's family, except for one child, died aboard ship of cholera. And I would have to assume, maybe you know better, and you can put comments down, to aboard ship. My assumption is that they would have had a burial at sea. They died of a disease that was running rampant. They wouldn't have wanted to keep their bodies aboard ship. So my assumption is that's where they went into the sea. Once they got to New Orleans, they then transferred to a paddle wheeler, and I believe that paddle wheeler was the Berliner, or the Berlin. I think it was called the Berlin. And I believe it took them 3 days to up the Mississippi to get to St. Louis, Missouri, where they're reunited with the rest of their family. Now, it took all of their savings to get to St. Louis, Missouri. Everything they had. And so now they were to rebuild. Everybody was to work to make money in order to get the goods and build the wagons so they can continue their journey to Salt Lake City, Utah. the home of the Mormons, Zion, if you will. And so in St. Louis, Margaret loses one child. It's specifically, I have a memoir written by William Laird Henderson. It would be Margaret's brother, younger brother, and he wrote about their travels, and I'm going to put this on the website so that it can be accessed. You can find it online as well, but I will try to put it online so that if anybody wants to read it, they can. It's a great a source document by somebody who lived through the 1800s and traveled through the Mormon Trail. So in St. Louis, one of Margaret's younger children, a son, he dies. And then before they had left, David Henderson, her husband, had been in a mining accident. And according to the memoir, he was not at 100% when they arrived in St. Louis. And it shows that he passed away of sunstroke sometime in 1851. So now Margaret has herself, all of her children, and the son that survived from her sister that she's caring for. And one of her other sisters, Angus, is now sick with cholera as well. And she is on her deathbed and is not predicted to survive. And so Agnes is married to, I believe it's Eastman, and he, well, I guess because she was on her deathbed, he was a Mormon, and her sister asked Margaret to marry her husband to become the wife before she passed away, so that all of her children would be taken care of. And so, knowing that her sister was about to die, she agrees. However, Margaret pulls her sister through and she survives. But now she finds herself as a second wife. And so it becomes an interesting tale, because Margaret has been raised as a Protestant. So she's doing what she needs to do to survive and to allow her sons and daughters to survive. And so in St. Louis, Margaret and her sister Agnes, to give Agnes credit as well, they began to run a coal running business. They pick up the coal at the mines, they take it into town, and they sell it. This was at a time when women did not do this. This was the men's sphere, and that's the part that women just were not allowed to take part in business, but yet they did. And so they save the money, they put everything toward it, and they have 2 wagons built. And from the documents at Family Search, it shows that there were like 100 wagons at this that were heading out. There was over 100 wagons heading out to go to St. Louis. And so each were divided into like 10 wagons, and then they'd have a captain. I believe it's Eastman, James's father, who was married to Margaret. The son was married to Margaret. He was the captain of that particular wagon train. So they headed out. Their wagons were built so that they could cross the Mississippi. And so they knew that they had to get from St. Louis to Salt Lake City, Utah before the snow hit. And so they actually make it. It's not easy. They've run into Indians, native of the land, and they would exchange food, things like that. Some of them became Minutemen once they arrived to Salt Lake. And but once at Salt Lake City, they thought that they were staying, and so they all worked, but things became very tense there in Salt Lake City. They had decided to travel to San Bernardino, where Lyman and them had already set an outpost in Southern California. And so they decide they're going to head out, but the church doesn't want them to go. And as Mormons, at the time, the church owned everything. You owned nothing, the church owned it. And so they ended up leaving in the middle of the night, sneaking out. There was a few of them, and then others sent out people to say, here, wait for us, we will meet you. And so they had quite a bigger wagon train than they expected, leaving in the middle of the night. And then, okay, so they did not have very much time to leave. They hadn't planned on leaving so soon, so they knew they weren't going to make it all the way to San Bernardino. So they ended up making it pretty much right on the Utah border, and spending about a year there, where they built up their reserves to get them the rest of the way. And so they left Utah about a year later, and it took a while. They went over the Cajon Pass, and it was an arduous journey. They stopped at off the Cajon Pass, off the 15 freeway. You can see the Mormon rocks. That would have been a resting place, so that probably have those rocks to their back, and then they would encircle the wagons so they would feel safe. When they got to San Bernardino, it took them until, I believe, 1858 to get there, and they left their home in 1850. By the time that they got there, I'm going to show you a few of these. Some of these, like I said, the Pioneer Cemetery is where a lot of the people who helped settle San Bernardino were buried here, but it hasn't been very well. Some of them have been taken care of, but there's a lot that have broken, that just are in need of repair, like this one there. So we're gonna make our way over here, back over here. So in San Bernardino, they all arrive, and Margaret's done. She's not going anywhere else. This is home. She is going to make a stand and just, that's where she wants to live out her days. So her husband and her sister want to decide to go to Oregon. She decides to stay. She never took Eastman's name. She was always Margaret Adam Henderson. And she ended up having a son with Eastman, and he was also a Henderson. He never took the father's name. So they left. She stayed. She raised her children. She ran a ranch. She owned land when women did not own land. There are documents available that show her name on the purchase orders. She was an amazing woman, and as we get closer, I'll show you where she's buried. And like I said, I'm going to go over to Mountain View to tell a little bit of a story about her. It would be her grandson, Rob Roy Henderson, and show you that she also has a her name. Her name is there with her children, but like I said, she's buried here. And so she lived a good life once they got here. They all homesteaded. She would actually watch grandchildren. They'd live with her for years at a time while their parents went off to homestead somewhere else. So she was never alone. I know that in some of the papers that I've read, her grandson said that Margaret had such a thick Scottish accent that it was really hard he could barely understand her. There's where she is buried. Margaret Adam Henderson, born August 12th, 1816, died August 12th, 1900. Sacred to the memory of our beloved mother in Henderson. So Margaret is my 4th great-grandmother, and it is sad what's happening to some of these. It looks like maybe she had a cross or something on the top that has come off. We are not in the best section of San Bernardino, so people can come in and go. You get people who are sleeping out here or break down, and so it's a little sad because but hers is still standing. We come out here once a year or so to check on it, and so that's my story of Margaret Adam Henderson, which she instilled the same owning businesses and things like that with her daughters, who her oldest daughter, who was also Margaret Henderson, ran an orchard in Ontario. So she was one of those pioneers that kind of led the way for women. And this says faith in every footstep, 1847 to 1997. But at least hers is still looking good. The marble, I mean, there's some nicks out of it, but it's still standing, at least most of it, at least the part with her name. Here's one more look here. Thank you for listening. And if you like more, please subscribe and like. And I will see you on the next one.